Today we're going to be talking about perspectives, okay? And perception, okay? So both of those things. Now, if you have something that you judge, okay, as a negative circumstance, and then you have a little patience, you're going to see something a little different, okay? When you have patience, you're going to see the glass half empty slowly change to the glass half full. What you perceive to be a negative interaction with patience can slowly change into a positive thing, or we can say it another way. It will change into something that will benefit you, or let's say it another way, it will change into something that will be conducive to your goals or to your liking, or let's say to your way. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, Costas. Good morning, lady. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Thank you for coming back. Okay. Good morning, Costas. Yeah. Hope you're not near the fires in Greece. We're seeing fires on the news. So we hope you're good. Anyway, yeah, good morning, everyone. We're on 7 different platforms worldwide this morning on different platforms. So we don't want to mention them because the algorithms might, exclude us from certain people that we want to reach. So anyway, so now how can patients turn a negative situation into a positive one? Okay. Well, when you consider, you're welcome. When you consider that something in its onset may appear to be negative, and because everything has a positive and negative side to it, at first, say for example, you lose your job. So if you lose your job, right, you're probably thinking like, okay, how can this be a good thing? Or what's the good side of this, right? But with a little patience, because there's a good and bad side to everything, right? With a little patience, guess what happens? The shift begins to happen. The shift in perspective, the shift in perception. And what you originally perceived to be something negative can slowly shift into something positive. And why is that? Because you have to give it a little time. Okay? So you remember yesterday when I said Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism, said, muddy water, let stand, clears. Okay? So in the beginning, the water was muddy, right? But when you let it sit, when you leave it alone, okay, when the water begins to be still, it starts to clear. And then what? Well, now you don't have muddy water anymore. Okay, it's the same thing for human beings. It's the same. So if something presents itself to you in the negative, right, when you have a little patience, you go, oh, I get it. And then you start seeing the good aspects of it. Okay, but patience is important. So let's say you lose your job unexpectedly, and the initial fears, are like, wow, like how am I going to get money? How am I going to pay my bills? Whatever. There's a lot of fear involved, right? So in the waiting and patience of it, instead of scrambling into the first available job, or like scrambling around, okay, now you're operating in lack if you do that, right? And now you're scrambling around to find something so you can pay your bills and have money, okay? Instead of doing that, just have a little patience, right? And pretty soon that shift will occur. Now maybe something that matches your skill sets will show up. Maybe something that matches your passion will show up. Maybe something that matches your natural gifts, your talents will show up. And then you do that. And then what happens? Well, now you have something that fits you. Now you have something that suits you. Now you have something that works towards your advantage. And all you had to do was be patient. That's all. But you see, patience is not our natural default, right? Because our natural default is we want to take action on something. We want to solve this problem. Okay? So I'm here to show you and explain to you and illustrate to you and demonstrate to you how a little bit of patience and slowly it starts to go like this. The glass half empty is slowly going like this. And pretty soon, the glass half full appears. Why? Because there's always two sides to everything. Let's say you go golfing and you accidentally wreck one of your favorite drivers. Maybe you hit it on a tree or something or whatever, right? And you break one of your drivers. Bad moment, right? But if you pause for a little while, right? Maybe the thought is like, okay, now I get to buy a new driver, brand new driver, or now I get to get that better one that I saw at the pro shop. Maybe now it's a good excuse to get the better one or a good reason. Okay, that's just a I don't golf or anything, so I'm just saying. I used to golf. I was terrible at it, and I realized that I shouldn't do it. So it was just one of those things. But I'm just saying, there's always the glass half full side. Sometimes when we lose a loved one, sometimes the good side is, okay, they're not suffering. Sometimes, when someone is sick, when someone we love is sick, through our own selfishness, we want to keep them there. We want to keep them with us, right? And at that point, we're kind of being a little selfish because why? Because it's going to affect us. But sometimes in that letting go, the positive side is they're not suffering anymore. There's no pain anymore, right? So, like I said, even in that situation, I'm just using that hypothetically, but in that situation, there is still a good side. Okay, so thank you, Costas. Thank you, lady. Thank you. Good morning, Austin. So you can find the good part of anything, but you have to look for it. But most importantly, this morning we're talking about patience. Okay, so how patience can turn a negative situation into a positive one. Okay, now you can do the same thing in relationships. When you have a conflict in relationships, sometimes it takes a major dramatic event, okay? And sometimes that involves a little trauma. Now, trauma, okay, our definition of trauma is an emotional event that sticks out negatively, right? That you remember, okay? It sticks out because it was serious. It meant something, right? That's what they call trauma. So in a relationship, sometimes it takes something like that to wake people up and bring them to a deeper understanding of their relationship. Sometimes people take others for granted. I see this a lot with men in my coaching. I see this a lot. And they come to me when they're just at that, stage where divorce is mentioned, that kind of thing. And it's a challenge to turn it around. And I say it's a challenge because it's a challenge in the guy. Because he's been conditioned. He's been conditioned into his marriage. So not every man is capable of turning it around, because not every man is capable of following the instructions that I give, because they're pretty if you've been conditioned into one way of living, it's a shocker, and it's not easy to pull off. It's not easy to do. Okay, but yeah, I remember one time I had 3 clients in the same span of 2 weeks, and all 3 of them saved their marriages, and it only took 2 weeks. Okay, and in that situation, you have to take drastic measures. So sometimes you have to take action to get to that deeper understanding. You have to take action. Sometimes the actions that you don't want to do. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes Sometimes you have to go against the tide, so to speak, or against the current, so to speak, or against the flow. Okay, so sometimes you have to do things you're not comfortable with. And one of those things may be saying no. Okay, one of those things may be, and you say yes and you comply out of fear of loss sometimes. Okay, so sometimes, you feel, okay, let me say feel, you feel like if you say no or if you put your foot down in a situation like that you're going to lose the relationship. But guess what? Sometimes, right, that woman wants you to do that because she wants to see you take a stand. And that in itself gets you to the deeper understanding. You see? Women do not admire men with no backbone. They don't. They just don't. It's not sexy. Let's put it that way. Okay, so conflict in a relationship can get to deeper understandings. And like I said, you do take people for granted sometimes. When you've been with them for a long period of time, if you've been married 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, okay, sometimes you take it for why? Because they're always there. They're always doing what they're doing, right? And if you look at it from the subconscious point of view, which is this mindset coaching that we do, okay? If you look at it from the subconscious, both people have been programmed into their subconscious to be who they are. Both of them. Okay? And this is why we say it's important for couples to grow together. Okay? Because when one grows and the other one doesn't grow, what happens? The one that's growing outgrows the other one. That's the way it works. Okay? So the couples that grow together, the couples that actually do the work together, to grow together, to make an effort, it's an effort. It's an effort. Relationships are an effort. They're always a work in progress. They're always something that demands attention, demands time, demands growth, demands work. Okay, and the work is in the growth. So, in a relationship, right, if one is growing, and I see this with women all the time, women are my clients. The majority of my clients have always been women. The majority. 8 out of 10 clients that I have. 8 out of 10, easy. And why is this? Because women seek to grow. Because everything is slanted against them. From the Bible on down. Don't get me started on that. But they put a lot of effort into confidence. They put a lot of effort into growth. Look at all these, go on LinkedIn and look at these ladies with multiple degrees. Multiple degrees. So when they're growing like this, and their significant other is not, or let's just say he's working hard. He's at his job doing his best with his thing. She's over here growing. Guess what happens? Pretty soon, they started out like this, but she starts going here. He's still here. She starts going here. He's still here. What happens? She outgrows him. And we see this a lot. I see it a lot. I see it a lot in my work. And what I need to do is take this guy here and push him up here in a short period of time. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There was this one client I had years ago, and he was in the military. And I was giving up on him towards the end because he just didn't get it. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't get himself to do the things I told him to do, right? And I told him, you know what? When you put on your uniform in the morning, stand in front of the mirror and realize what it took to get you here. and how you're going to have to escalate things in order to get to the next level, to salvage this thing. And he did make a little improvement. But like I said, when you are conditioned into any relationship, this is not exclusive to marriage, by the way. This is business relationships. This is boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, whatever relationships, non-committed relationships. These are friendships. You can outgrow your friend group. Easy. Easy. I see it happen all the time. And like I always say, this is why they say, well, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll tell you who you are. On the vibrational level, now this gets a little, frequency-ish, right? But on the frequency level, on the vibrational level, you outgrow people vibrationally as well. So when you belong, or when you achieve, or when you get to a higher emotional vibration, you're not going to hang with the same people anymore, but you're going to meet new people. You're not going to hang with the same old gang anymore. You're going to meet new people. I thought it was very strange that I always saw the same people at the shopping center that I used to go to. And I hardly go there now, but I like to go there every once in a while just to reminisce, and it's a nice sentimental journey, so to speak. But I found it funny that at one point years ago, like I used to go to the shopping center, I would never see anybody I know anymore. Now, where are they? They're there. They're just not in my vibration, and I'm not in theirs, because it shifted. So these shifts happen. The same shift of perception, the same shift from positive to negative occurs in the environment, occurs in your environment, in your timeline. And quantum physics tells us that, okay, yeah, there are parallel timelines now. There are different levels. I think they're up to the 10th, 10th dimension, that they've discovered the 10th dimension. And that was a couple of years ago, so I'm not really up on the latest science in quantum physics. I haven't taken a look at that lately, but I can tell you that these things happen. I've witnessed these things. They've happened to me. And there's people above you and below you, if you want to look at it this way. Okay, if you want to look at it that way. In vibration, it's just right next to each other in reality. But the people ahead of you, the people that are of a higher frequency than you, right? Because there's always higher and lower of everything. There's always greater and lesser of everything. But the people in the higher vibration than you might know them for a little while. And then they'll move on, and you'll go, what happened to those guys? They're gone too. You see? And this is the universal law of relativity. Okay, so we always talk about universal laws, right? So the law of vibration is a law. The law of attraction is a law. The law of relativity is a law. It says that everything is relative and should be viewed in its context. Challenges are relative to our perception. And this goes back to that Lao Tzu quote again. Everything is relative to our perception. And that's why when something seems to be negative, if you just pause become the observer, give it a chance, give it some space, you will see it change, and it will shift, and you will feel the shift. And then it goes from the glass half empty to the glass half full. And this is not woo-woo. This is the human psyche. This is your perception. But it happens with patience. Why? Because there is only that positive and negative. And in order for something to shift from either or, positive to negative or negative to positive, it requires time. Maybe not a lot of time. So what prevents this from happening? Judgment. Which is one of the reasons why in the holy books it says, judge not and ye shall not be judged. In other words, if you don't apply a label to something, right? When you apply a label to something, it's saying something about yourself. But when you don't apply the label, now you are neutral, now you are the observer, and now you get to watch it change. You see? When you judge, you're saying, okay, that is like that. That's like that. That's like this. Now, in that pronouncement, what do you get? You get what you judged, right? You get that. Oh, it's like that? Okay, it's like that. It's like that to you. If you get 5 different people, you may get 5 different perceptions. You may get 5 different views. You may get 5 different variations of it, or explanations of it, or opinions of it, you see. One person may see it this way, one person may see it that way. And the only thing that kind of works it out is a discussion. You know, when this side says, well, I see your point, and then this one says, yeah, I see your point about that, and they come to a conclusion. So what is perceived to be a negative thing, with patience, okay, with observation, okay, with a little personal restraint, can start to shift, and then, all of a sudden it's not so bad. I used an example, for lack of a better example. Last night I was working with one of my clients. He's a CEO. And I was working with and I had to use as an example the time that I first went to buy my first new car, way back in 2007. And the example I gave of this perception and of this process was when I went to the new car dealer, right? I went to the car dealer. The guy that, my salesperson, the guy that was going to be my salesperson, who eventually sold me the car, the brand new car. But in the beginning, he took me out to the used car section in the back of the building. And I was wondering, like, I had that moment, right? That WTF moment. Like, why is he showing me used cars? But because it was through divine inspiration that I was there, I checked in, okay? I just do that for, a visual. But I checked in here. The kingdom is in here. God lives in here. So I was checking in with God. And I checked in with every step just to make sure that it was divine guidance that I was following and not my ego. Okay, because you can follow your ego too, and your ego will get you in trouble. Okay, all day long. So I checked in. Now, what's the process? Ask, believe, receive, right? So I checked in with every step I asked, and I believed in what I was asking, and I received the answer. So the guy takes me out to the used car section, right? And the ego, my ego, had a WTF moment in that moment. Like, why is he taking me in like that, right? Okay. So what I had to do is I had to say stop. And I had to check in. And when I checked in, the intuition told me, or my intuition, or let's say the divine intuition, or let's say God. Let's say God said, it's a feeling. It's not like you hear words. It's a thought. But it comes from the right side. And that thought was, be patient. And so I looked around. The thought was, look around. So I looked around. I walked down a little bit, I looked at the cars, I walked back, looked at the cars, and then I stopped. And the guy said, do you see anything you like? And I said, no. I checked in, and then the answer was no. And he said, would you like to look at new cars? And I checked in, and the answer was yes. And I said yes. And he took me into see the new cars, which led to a test drive, which led to, the eventuality and the brand new car and all of that. But the point and the reason why I'm mentioning this is, if the guy took me out to the, right? So we're talking about perception, okay? And we're talking about patience, and we're talking about how you affect the next step and the next step and the next step. So the reason why I'm explaining this is because if he took me out to look at used cars, and I had a WTF moment and I got cocky and the ego took over, and I gave him attitude for that, it would have changed the entire dynamic for that whole process. It would have changed the entire thing. So patience in that instance is also for checking in, is also for consulting your higher source, whatever you consider that to be. For some people it's Jesus Christ, for some people it's Allah, for some people it's, right, Krishna, for some people it's whoever, source, universe, whatever, super conscious. For the sake of our discussion, we will put all of that into the superconscious, under the superconscious label. Okay, so conscious, subconscious, superconscious. But that's right brain activity, intuition, intuitive thought, inspiration, all comes, creativity, all comes from the right hemisphere of the brain. This is why in the Bible, Jesus says, cast your net to the right. Why? Because they weren't catching fish on the left. He said, cast it to the right. And what happened? When the apostles cast it to the right, they couldn't even pull the net into the boat. Too many fish. Okay? What was the subconscious learning of that passage, or that chapter, or that verse? It was abundance. When you cast your net to the right side, let's say it another way, when you access the right brain, you enter into abundance. The left brain is logic. The left hemisphere of the brain will logically rationalize you away from your dreams, away from your goals. It will logically explain to you why this is not possible. A brand new car is not possible. Where are you going to get the money from? Where are you going to get your down payment from? Where are you going to get your, right? All of those things, right? And then when you drive it off the lot, it's going to depreciate. How are you going to deal with that? The logic brain will give you every reason why this is not logical. All I did that day was sign the paper. That's all I did. I didn't know what my credit score was. I didn't care. Why? Because I trusted God. Because I had that faith. Because I cast my net to the right side. Never mind the left. Never mind the fear. Never mind the logic. Never mind the explanations or the reasons. So the Christians have a saying for that. We say, walk by faith and not by sight. Why? Because the sight is an illusion. When you walk by sight, it's an illusion. When you walk by feeling, let's say it another way. When you walk with intuition, when you become the observer and you are led by divine intervention, because that's what it is. It's the divine intervening. It's your divine guidance system, intuition. You're not being led by ego. The ego belongs to the left. The ego says, no, you can't do this because this is illogical. This doesn't math out. The right brain says, it doesn't have to math out. It doesn't have to math out. I'm here to tell you to trust your crazy dreams. I'm here to tell you to trust your crazy thoughts. Because that left side, that rational, logical thinking will rationalize you slowly out of your dream. It'll start giving you reasons why this is impossible. If the Wright brothers did it that way, if they were logically looking at it like that, we would not be flying in jets today. It would not have been invented. It wasn't logical. Go look at the research. Go look at the old photos, the old film clips of people trying to fly. None of it was logic. There was a lot of imagination involved. Where is imagination? Right hemisphere, left hemisphere? It's on the right. Jesus sits at the right hand of the Father, not the left. Not the left. There's a reason they say that. There's a reason it is written. And so it is. So the law of relativity tells us that everything is relative and should be viewed in its context. So when something presents itself as a negative situation, what do? Don't rush to judgment. Don't be the first one to say, oh, this is that. Like, no, not like that. Wait to see what it is. Have a little patience. Because when you rush to judgment, you're saying, okay, it's just that way, and that's it. And guess what? That's what it will be. But if you give it a little time, you're going to see it slowly shift, slowly, right? And now it turns into a positive thing. And for me, it was just, it took hours for me. It took hours to, because first it started off like used cars, right? 4 hours later, it was a brand new car on signature, $58,000. And of course it depreciated when it drove off the lot. You think I worried about that? No, I was just happy that I had a new car. That's all. Tears of joy were running down my face as I was signing the papers in the finance office. And the lady said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, I'm fine." But it was a lesson in faith. When you walk by faith and not by sight, things just have a way of rearranging. And what is perceived to be fear is no longer fear. what is perceived to be bad or unfortunate circumstances start to change into fortunate circumstances, starts to change into things that will work for you instead of against you. And all it takes is just a little patience, a little observation. That's it. So how does it work, with opportunities? Same. Because when you miss an opportunity, okay, when that door closes, another door opens. If you're so cautious that you have to hang on to one door while you reach for this door, guess what's gonna happen? This is gonna happen. You don't want to let go of this one because you're what? Afraid. You're afraid to let this go until you have this one, right? But now you're holding two doors. Now you're going like this. You're going like this, like this, like this, like this, right? What do you have to do? Let go. Let go. When you let go, what happens with this door? Boom, it opens. And then you walk through. What does it take to let go? Confidence. It takes courage and confidence. It takes confidence to let go. Because the confidence is the belief and the faith that no matter what, this door will open. But it can't open if you're still hanging on to the other one like that. Same with relationships. Okay? You gotta let go of this one before you can go to this one. If you're trying to do this, you're stuck in between. It works the same for a job. It works the same for opportunities, for relationships, for family, for everything. But letting go is very challenging for humans because we get comfortable. We like where we are. Even if it's not the best of circumstances, but we enjoy being where we are. Why? Because it's familiar. We don't like change, right? Because change requires more work. Things are changing. Oh, God, got to get used to this. If you're stuck in a rut, if you're stuck with whatever you're stuck with, at least it's familiar. At least you know what's going on. At least you know you're stuck, right? How do you change it? Affirmations, meditation, vocalization, and visualization all day long. But today we're talking about the patience aspect of it. So let's say you're doing your affirmations. Let's say you're doing your meditation, vocalization, and visualization. Let's say you're doing all those 4 things. Because when you aim those 4 things at one thing, it cannot not happen. It has to happen. It's universal law, and you're a human being. God is in here. God lives in here, not up there, out there. There is no out there, out there. The only thing out there is nature and things from someone else is in here. And if they can, you can. In Hawaii, we have an expression. We say, if can, can. Because always can. That's the secret. That's the big secret. Always can. Like, always. But if you leave it up to the ego to make the plan, okay, if the left, right, we're talking about the left hemisphere of the brain, if you let the ego figure it out, if you let the ego rationalize it, if you let the ego demand its own way, the journey might not be as smooth. You may be successful, sure. The ego can be successful. There's such a thing as a healthy ego, which is actually a limited ego. But yeah. But when you cast your net to the right, when you lean not unto your own understanding, which is the ego, when you allow it to, okay, we're going to the right. Everything you own in the box to the right, okay? When you allow it, guess what? Things turn out and you don't know how it turned out, right? But the how is God's job. The how is God's job. God lives in here. You don't have to know how. You just have to know what and why. The how and when is God's job. So, in that effort of missed opportunity, I missed that one. Okay, maybe there's a reason why you missed that. Oh, I missed that flight. Oh, maybe it's a good thing, right? How many times have you heard those stories, right? Oh, there's so-and-so, he missed the flight and then the plane crashed. There's a reason he missed the flight, huh? Not always, but I'm just saying, you've heard stories like that. I'm just using it as an example. But there's a reason sometimes when you miss an opportunity, it's because another door is opening, but you can't see it yet. And that's the faith part. Things that you can't see. Things that you can't imagine. Imagination is very important. Einstein said, education will get you from A to Z, but imagination will get you everywhere. But you have to trust. Trust is a big thing. Why is it such a big thing? Because there's been so many instances where we have been let down. And the biggest person that lets us down is us. That's number one. You will let you down faster than anything. Okay, God does not punish. God is love. We punish as humans. We punish ourselves. How do we punish? Through the subconscious. That's why this is mindset training. That's why this is mindset coaching. That's why this is mindset study. That's why this involves the subconscious. That's why in the scriptures, when it says Jesus said, cast your net to the right, esoterically, it's talking about the right hemisphere of the brain. That's where the abundance is. That's where abundance lives. On the rational side of things, on the logical side of things, in the left hemisphere of the brain, there's no abundance over there. The whole journey of Moses in the Bible is the journey from the left to the right. In here. Okay, God lives in here. How did God reveal himself to Moses? I am. I am lives in here. When you say I, watch what you put after I. Okay, because you can either empower or disempower yourself. I'm stupid. I am. I'm stupid. I am stupid. There you go. What have you done now? Well, not only have you put this in your subconscious, if you say it over and over and over again, you'll believe it, right? It will become a belief. Then your self-esteem goes down. Your self-confidence goes down. And you're insulting God all at the same time, or your creator, or source, or universe, or Allah, or Jesus Christ. Because they all live in here. But when you say, I love myself, or you say, I'm good at that. Oh, I'm good at playing the guitar, or I'm good at art. I'm good at drawing. I'm good at painting. I'm good at dancing. I'm good at this. I'm good at that. But we've been taught a false sense of humility, haven't we? I'm talking about us old schoolers. The young kids are a little bit different. Thank God. Praise God. Okay. The young kids are a little bit different. We're slowly getting out of that paradigm. We've been taught that humility is viewing ourselves as less than. That's the old school. The truth is, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Putting others first. Thinking of somebody else first. Giving to somebody else first. Doing for somebody else first. That's humility. That's being humble. Being humble is not sacrificing your place in line. Being humble is not dismissing yourself or putting yourself down or putting yourself behind or making yourself less than. Although people walk around with shirts like that, right? He is greater than I. What is that? You're less than. I understand their point, but psychologically, it affects those people. And they become conditioned into believing that they're less than. Less than what? Less than God? God lives in here. So you're less than this? You see? I know tons and tons of people. They go to church every Sunday and they don't believe in this one. They don't believe in themselves, but they go to church. They say they believe in God, but they don't believe in this. Yet God is in here. You see? But once you discover that the kingdom is within, once you discover that your gifts are within, once you discover that life unfolds for you from within, okay? It doesn't happen to you like this. If life is happening to you like this, you're suffering from victim mentality. You're a victim because life is happening to you instead of for you. Life happens for you because it originates in thought. And the thoughts you think the most, right? A belief is a thought you keep thinking, goes into your subconscious. Now what? Well, your subconscious starts confirming this. It starts giving you more of what you believe. It starts showing you these things. The reticular activating system in your brain starts filtering out the things you're not focused on. So what are you focused on? Are you focused on that new pair of shoes? The black ones with the decorations on it or whatever? You're going to see more of those everywhere you go. Every shopping center you go, you're going to see more of the, oh yeah, I saw another pair over here. Oh, I didn't know they carry it too. Yeah, it's over there too. Why? Because your reticular activating system in your brainstem is showing you all of these shoes. Pretty soon, guess what? You've manifested a pair of those shoes. Why? Because it keeps being presented to you. One day you'll find the right price. One day the price will be right. One day there will be an amazing sale, right? And then you get the shoes. Why? Because the focus was the shoes. Whatever you focus on intensifies. Whatever you focus on gets greater. It grows. The desire grows, right? The demand grows. The craving grows. Whatever you focus on intensifies. And then it comes into your life. Now, at this point, at this juncture of this explanation, I must say that money is not the only way you can get it. So if you're thinking that money is the only way you can get something, you're suffering from limited thinking. All you have to do is focus on it. All you have to do is think about it. Then you will believe it. And then maybe somebody gets it for you. Maybe you get it as a present, as a Christmas present, birthday present, present for the heck of it, present. Those are the best kind. They appear out of nowhere. Hey, I was at the mall. I saw this, this thing was on sale. I got it. Oh my God, that's the one I've been thinking about. There you go. Coincidence or superconscious? When you're thinking about a friend that you haven't seen for a long time and you think about them and think about them and think about them, where's your focus? On that person. And then you run into them in the mall. Coincidence or superconscious? Let's say it another way. Coincidence or God? Or coincidence or Jesus Christ or. So when you have a health setback, that's another one. Sometimes you look at it like, oh, I have, I don't know, high blood pressure, for example, right? High blood pressure. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign to make changes so that the heart attack doesn't happen, so that the stroke doesn't happen. So on the onset, it could look like, wow, this is bad news. This is a bad thing. But with a little bit of patience, then you find out, oh yeah, well, there were these other indicators, these other underlying things that I didn't know about. But now since they found out about my blood pressure, now they found about these things. Oh, lucky thing, because I could have had a stroke, or I could have had a heart attack, or I could have. Infinite possibilities to everything. Infinite possibilities, not one or two, not A or B. Infinite possibilities. But that was the warning, that was the shot over the bow, that was the clue. Now you've avoided a bigger problem because you were patient, because you've accepted, right? You accepted that problem. And slowly it turned out to, oh, this is actually a preventative measure rather than a catastrophe. You see? You see? Perception. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So how do you see this? How do you see today? How do you see moving forward in today's time? In the now, in your present now. What's today going to be like for you? If you become the observer, if you have a little patience, everything that you see today that's negative, okay, try this as an experiment. Everything you see today, and the first impression is negativity. If you be patient, you'll see it. You'll see the shift. You'll see it start to shift. And then you go, oh, that's what Junior was talking about. That's what he was talking about. Because there's always two sides to everything. So what are your key takeaways? Well, patience isn't passive. It's not a weakness, it's a strength. It's internal growth. Patience. That's why they say patience is a virtue. You hear that a lot, but nobody explains it to you, right? Well, this is virtuous. Internal strength is virtuous. When you are strong internally, you're tapping into the kingdom. What kingdom? The kingdom within. Jesus said the kingdom is within. And he directed us to go within so we don't go without. Because when you go into the kingdom, you start experiencing the answers. When you ask and believe in your asking, you will receive. There's no such thing as going within and asking a question and not getting an answer. No such thing. Your subconscious is obligated to answer you. You just need to ask. Some people don't ask. Some people don't ask enough, or often enough, or big enough. Most people don't ask big enough. Ask big. Go ahead. Ask big. If you're asking for money, ask big. Ask for 10,000. Then if you only get 200, are you going to be happy? Of course you're going to be happy if you started with zero, right? If you started with $10 and you ask for $10,000 and you get $1,000, you're going to be happy? Of course you're going to be happy. Get used to asking bigger. Because when you do that, you widen the field. The field becomes broader. There's more possibilities. There's more opportunity. There's more room. But people look at it as being humble. Oh, I'm humble, so I'm going to be humble, so I'm just going to ask for a little bit. And then you get granted a little bit. And then that's all you get. A little bit. So be generous in your offerings and be generous in your asking. Because when you ask and you believe in your asking, you will receive all day long. Guaranteed. It's universal law. It's written in the Bible. Mark 11:24. Matthew, I believe it's, I don't know, I'm not a Bible verse person, but it's in Matthew. I think it's 22:23, something like that. But that's the formula. That's the magic formula. It's not magic. You're a human being. You're God's highest creation. You were created in the image of I am. And I am lives in here. And that's why the first thing I have my clients do is write 100 positive I ams about themselves. I am generous. I am kind. I am loving. Right? I am smart. I am. Because it conditions your subconscious. It wakes it up. It says, come on, we're believing. We're believing in ourselves now. Come on. It's time to wake up. Snap out of the societal hypnosis because it exists. You know, if you don't believe me, next time you're at an intersection, look around you. Look at all the people with their hands on the steering wheel going like this, just waiting for the light to change. It's hypnotic. It's hypnosis. They have been conditioned. But when you start recognizing that life force within you, that I am within you, that kingdom within you, that Jesus Christ talked about, that Gautama Buddha talked about, that Krishna talked about, they all talk about it in different ways, but they all mention it. It's in all holy writings. When you discover that I am, you will know that you are. And when you know, you will become more aware. And in order to get to the know part, you have to be still. Be still and know. Because you are. I'm Junior from Here For You Life Coaching. It's 8 o'clock. And we do this every morning from 7 to 8. I have no sales pitch. I have nothing to sell you, unfortunately. The website is hereforyoulifecoaching.com if you're interested in checking it out. My purpose is not a sales thing. Okay, so I know everybody's waiting. Okay, what are you selling? What's the book? What's the if you want the book, you can write to me and I'll send you a PDF copy for free. Okay, it's the Universal Law of Attraction and Singing. This will change your life. This will give you new understanding. This will motivate you in ways that you've probably never thought of. But yeah, if you email me, I will send you a PDF copy, absolutely free. Okay, otherwise, I shall see you tomorrow morning, and we want to